Right, so we're waiting to go. Oh, we are live on Facebook. We are live on Facebook, and we are live on Blog Talk Radio. So, a lot of stuff has happened this week. I made a mistake, and I did not properly complete all the required fields on the Blog Talk description. So we have a very short description. We're going to talk about the most important subjects of the week, the most important topics of the week. So we'll start off with discussing the events in Iraq and Iran. We'll start the program saying, hey, we got Cliff on the line. Cliff, this has been a nightmare, as always. I don't know what else to say about how much of a nightmare all this stuff is, except for I think it fits in with the theme tonight, and that this has just become a nightmare planet. Everything is based on fraud. There's absolutely nothing good in the overall society, and that it is time to just reject and repudiate every single thing about this government and about how it operates. And when I say this government, I had this long description for tonight's show set up, using all my brain power, thinking about it all on the walk that I take every night before the show. And we'll just put it this way. Everybody and their mother goes on about how the word government, which when we talk about governments, we're talking about nothing but a fictional incorporation, a legal fiction that is acting as a powerful dead body. But we know that the word government comes from the Latin gubernare, and combining that with the word mente. Gubernare means to control, to have power over something, and then mente is Latin for mind, so it's Latin. A lot of folks like to point to the Old French based in Latin, but it's a key point because it's all about government, governing or controlling one's mind, and the key point of all of that is in this system that we have, that we are suffering. We're not suffering. That we have to deal with. Let's put it that way. Let's get the words exact. We have to deal with that. It has to be reckoned with. This system of a group of individuals who are unable to control their own minds, voting, and we've all covered how voting is inconsequential. It doesn't mean a thing. It's all rigged. You're wasting your time more than you're wasting your time doing anything else when you go and vote. But that a decision can be made by a group of individuals that can't even control their own minds, and that they have any basis in saying or influencing in any way those who can control their own minds. In other words, if you can't control your own mind, you certainly are in absolutely no position to make any decision of any importance. And there is hardly anyone in this society that can control their own minds. Cliff, but I'm going to have to get some feedback tonight quick, because this system is like really starting to get to the core of what I believe, and it's very simple. I reject everything about this society. I reject it with with extreme prejudice, and I don't have anything to do with it. The government, as it is written, as it is alleged to be, as folks masquerade that it still is abolished. And unfortunately, the people did not do their duty and abolish it themselves. The government abolished its own self. The entity that we call the United States government, and here in Virginia, the Virginia government, it abolished itself, and the people sat back and did virtually nothing, with the exception of very few people. And so what we're saying here is that we reject everything that the government does. And I want to make clear that this goes for all the world governments, because that's another thing that that was written in the description that disappeared off of the internet, and it was my mistake. But all the governments of the world, they're in on this plan together. UN Agenda 21. So basically, War Satanic Agenda 21 is the title of tonight's show. And I can tell you, it's very obvious that this Agenda 21 is underway. It's underway, and nothing is going to be able to stop it except for God. God is the only answer. So all things are possible in God, but this satanic agenda has just been swallowed entirely by the people, and we have absolutely nothing to do with attempting to stop it. So at this point, I did my best. I've done my best to stop this agenda as soon as I learned about it. As soon as I found out, oh, hey, this is it. Maybe it's not. Oh, yeah, let me look into it. It definitely is. They're doing it. And if you can't see what's going on now with Agenda 21 and the fires all over the world, especially the continent of Australia, the state of California, Korea, they're having, everywhere you can think of, they're either having massive floods flooding everyone out, or massive fires burning everything to the ground, and all these things are killing all the animals and also killing some people. But the people are the first stage is to get them out off the land and get them into these urban settings and slash and burn the rest, make unlivable the rest of the continents, land, whatever. So this is where we are right now. We are right now smack dab in the middle of Agenda 21, and it's beyond the time to remove consent. It is now the time to make clear that I cannot oppose this government any stronger than I do. I cannot remove my consent anymore. I cannot say that all government officials, all corporate officials, all millionaires and billionaires are guilty of treason. The punishment for treason is death, and I could not be in favor of enforcing the law anymore. I with every fiber of my being, and that I am explicitly saying that this system is so satanic, it is so disgusting and disturbing, and so antithetical to God, rational thought, and anything that has any possibility of being good on planet Earth. The natural order as it could be. And so whatever the government is for, this usurping incorporation driven by literally clear psychotic mass murderers, demons, I mean, whatever you want to call them, however you are, if satanic, Luciferian, worshippers of Satan, murderous, sociopathic, psychotic individuals bent on destroying all life on planet Earth. Go ahead, Cliff.
Genocidaires, those who commit genocide, child rapists.
Right. It's all of them. And
hey guys. Hey, sorry I'm late. I was having a little bit of phone and internet trouble. Now, just to fill me in, have you or Clifford been sharing on either one of your accounts? Because if not, I'm going to get right to it.
I have not.
David, don't say anything. Get right to it. I've been sharing on my account, so yeah.
Okay, and real quick, make sure, I think one of the issues might be, make sure you're sharing it to the most relevant pages that you can think of, i.e. the ones with the most views, things that say like 2014 or 2012 in the title. Don't share to those, and don't share to any place where somebody might, complain or be a snitch or a narc, like yard sale sites or anything like that. But yeah, we'll get right back to.
I had to ask so we wouldn't log in at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
I got it from you.
Totally. Thanks, David. Thanks for double checking. So, to get back to what we're talking about, and soon we'll get into all the false flags about the Iran, conflict with the United States government and the burning up of the continent of Australia, the massive flooding in the southeastern Asia, the alleged incident between the United States warship and a Russian spy ship today. What else are we going to talk about? Let's talk. I mean, we can talk a little bit about Trump. We can talk about the fact that the economy is getting ready to crash. It has already crashed, and when you start talking about recession, there are elements of the United States economy that have been in recession for months. We are in a manufacturing recession, officially. And so what has kept this economy going is the exact wrong thing for you, unless you're somebody that owns a lot of stocks, which is very few people. And this is the quantitative easing that never stopped. The quantitative easing never stopped. Let me repeat myself. The quantitative easing never stopped, and it's not just about the low interest rates. It's about expanding the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve Bank, and whenever the Federal Reserve Bank balance sheet is expanded, which is happening now. It happened, 10.6% increase in the expansion of an increase in the balance sheet, the quote-unquote balance sheet for the Federal Reserve Bank, and an 11.2% rise in the stock market. So what this is doing to you if you work, especially for an hourly wage, but even if you get a salary, when the Fed expands its balance sheet, the dollar is weaker. So you get less money. You get less. So it's like your buying power goes down when the Fed expands its banking balance sheet, and the corporations just keep going. So we saw spikes in the oil market right after the assassination of Soleimani, the Iranian general. Obviously, anyone listening to that knows what we're talking about. So spike in oil, spike in gold, and then it goes back down. And so this is what we're seeing as short selling. So when Kushner and Trump and all the billionaire members of the Synagogue of Satan are discussing the attacks on Iran, I believe all this stuff is all coordinated. It benefits all sides, because, I would say that no matter what, all the nation states are under the umbrella of the United Nations. Now they're going to obfuscate a little bit by refusing to give the Iranian prime minister or foreign minister the ability to be in New York to address the governing body. Now that's silly in itself. We know that the UN is criminal and behind all this Agenda 21 stuff. It's the world governing body. It is the political arm of the Bank for International Settlements and the Rothschild Zionist international banking cartel. But isn't that funny? Like, something's not a real thing, or has no legitimacy when a member state can't be addressed after an act of war was carried out against them. Clearly, there's always stuff behind the scenes. It's never as it seems. But on the face value of things, if we're to believe anything of what we're told about the head of the Quds force being assassinated, that's an act of war. And so if this governing body can't have a representative of the attacked government address the world governing body that's alleged to prevent war, then it doesn't work at all. So on the surface level, I say, hey, Iran is acting in a more, has more standing than the Iran Incorporated has more standing than the United States Incorporated. Now, there's a little bit more that goes into that because,
at least in regard to this particular dynamic and their overall relationship, because we won't forget that the Iranian government is killing its own people, and this gives the people of Iran something to focus on other than abolishing their own criminal government.
Right. Now that's a good point, Cliff. Let's get right into that. Let's get right into that because this fits in with all the nations of the world are working together. They're all working together, and what's the proof? Well, the proof is that there is a lot of anti-government sentiment in Iran, and I can tell you that's not my society. That's not my culture. I have more respect for Iranian government officials than any United States government officials. So let's just get that right out of the way. I've only had one disrespectful interaction with any of the, I would say, 24 Iranian officials that I ever have been in touch with. And I don't know whether these people are Iranian or they're of Iranian descent and they're living in the UK or living in the United States of America. I don't know who I'm dealing with, really. So it's not like I can, but at least these people are somewhat friendly and respectful. They know what I'm going to say, and they have helped to give me a platform. Now, on the other side, the American government or the United States Incorporation knows what I'm going to say, and they have a less legal response to what I say, which makes sense because I'm calling for the law to be enforced. We believe that that the law should be enforced against this criminal government called the United States of America, and that would result in the complete abolition of the government and the neutralization of all the institutions and all the leaders of all the institutions which control this usurping incorporation that they call a government. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, there's all sorts of conspiracy theories about what's going on with Soleimani. And this is what we said from the beginning, because it's always an inside job. If in fact that whatever they're saying took place, we don't really see any proof beyond a shadow of a doubt that this guy Soleimani was assassinated. Now, with this incident, I'm not going to say he was. I'm not going to say he was not. I don't know. I haven't seen proof. And it seems really strange that they're saying a bunch of contradictory things. That the Iranian government is a huge threat. They're targeting embassies. They're doing this and that. An act of war is carried out against them, and their response is letting the United States and Iraqi military know that they're going to shoot a bunch of high-tech missiles into a target that is nothing, can be easily replaced, and was not damaged hardly at all. But that they're dangerous, and then what? There's a plane taking off from their own airport in their capital city, the largest airport in the nation, heading, a plane, a United States Incorporated made Boeing, belonging to the Ukrainian government, and the Iranians are so stupid and so inept that by accident they're going to shoot Russian surface-to-air missiles at a Ukrainian plane and blow it out of the sky, killing Iranians, Canadians, Ukrainians, Germans. Who else? Who else was on that plane? British? What? That they're so dangerous that they're going to hit all these embassies, and yet they're so inept that they're going to shoot down a plane coming out of their own airspace. I'm not saying this is what happened, because it seems it was sabotage that took the plane down. It appears that to be missile, but the Ukrainian government and others are now saying, hey, it could have been a bomb. Could have been terrorists placing a bomb on the plane. It could have been. It could be anything. But all we know is we don't have anything to do with this escalation. We didn't start these fires in Australia. We didn't carry out these staged mass shootings in Virginia and other places carried out by the government. We don't have anything to do with this stuff. I don't consent or agree to anything. Any contract, I'm non-assumpsit. So, I don't know why and it's not, I can tell you. Hey, I had to pay money to get a magical sticker put on my vehicle so it wouldn't get towed away. Now I have to pay even more money than I paid for the vehicle to operate it legally for half of a year, and I'll do it. I mean, I would prefer the abolition of the government and the execution of all government officials, but hey, I'll do it. When I buy something from the grocery store, I don't go every time. I'm like, yeah, here, I'm not going to pay you taxes on this, but I'm going to take this. That would not work out. All right. So we're going to talk about how Donald Trump is a child rapist, and everybody who supports Donald Trump is a child raping supporter or a child rapist themselves. And the same goes for all the Democrats. The same goes for all Republicans and all Democrats. We don't have anything to do with either freaking side because there's only one side. So if you start putting a bunch of nonsense out there, you're going to get blocked immediately. But hey, it's good to see the trolls out there. It's good to see the foreign governments and the domestic governments of the world make sure that their bots hit every broadcast that may have any sort of crossover content. Go ahead.
I saw a comment today on a video of criminal police following me on New Year's Eve. Say all liberals are the real tyrants, all of them. It was from some account calling itself Live Police Chase.
Funny.
It's disgrace what we
Here's the response. Here's the response. Okay, so if somebody says that they're a liberal, that means they're a liberal Satanist. If somebody says that they're a conservative, that means they're a conservative Satanist. If somebody says that they're a Republican, that means they're a Republican Satanist. And if somebody says that they're a Democrat, that means they're a Democratic Satanist. So there you go. That's all you really need to know about any of this stuff. That's all you need to know. Again, when everything is fraud, this is a trick that these Democratic Party mind control Jews, Synagogue of Satan members and others used to say to me when I would lay into every single Republican and every single Democrat that I had any contact with in any sort of way. Well, what about this person? Do you like them? You have to like somebody. You have to like somebody. No, I don't. I don't have to like any of this. It's all unacceptable. There's nothing acceptable in the way this society works. Now am I saying like some of these other pieces of trash that I see out there tweeting about how they never watch TV, tweeting about how, making Facebook posts about how they don't consume Zionist media and they got rid of their TV. I'll tell you, social media is almost worse than TV, and we know what it is. Now, I'm on it, so what can I say about it? I got a TV on in the background on CNN. I'm looking at two guys on my TV screen right now, and I believe one is Sheldon Whitehouse and the other is Anderson Cooper. I could be wrong because I'm just kind of glancing, and I'm watching them, and at the same time, I can say very confidently and explicitly, I wish for them both, and all others, that doesn't just go for CNN, to stand trial and be convicted for their treason and then be punished for it. It does not mean I'm not going to watch my enemy, and we're using the enemy apparatus here. It's not like we would say, oh yeah, hey Mark Zuckerberg, hey thanks buddy for allowing us to use your spy apparatus. No, we know that all the Khazarian mafia members at at every IT installation, which is all DARPANet, it's all for military intelligence. There's absolutely nothing out there in society that does not have a military purpose behind it. From Justin Bieber saying that he's under Lyme disease, it was created out of Fort Detrick, Maryland, and Plum Island, to the spokespersons for the Pentagon having their own network. So it's really funny when they start talking about Press TV and how it's owned by the Iranian government. But when I go on Press TV, I operate in Washington, D.C., inside an American corporation, or at a United States government facility. And hey, you know, if folks want to take that the wrong way, I'm talking about a PBS studio. That's a United States government facility. And particularly where I shot my interviews and videos and documentaries for Press TV, it was always inside the Virginia State Capitol, unless it was in an American corporation in the District of Columbia. Dozens of times. Not just once. Once is enough. So, but much more than that. So, yeah, what is usurped royalty? Yeah, I don't know. So reject everything. I mean, this is what we have in today's society. Like, for example, today I was watching the news, and if I was not smarter, I would completely take the side of all the Republicans in the Virginia House of Delegates. But what we're saying is we reject all of it. We don't want to have anything to do with it. We wish to have our own separate space. I don't wish to be around anyone who tolerates this satanic, torturous waste of God's gift to all living things. That's what the society that's what they're pushing the society towards. That everything is a waste. God created paradise for man and all living creatures, and we have been given dominion over this planet, and a certain entity that we cannot stop, a monster that has been created by the hands of man through the synagogue of Satan, has pushed us to the brink where we say we reject everything about it. We don't want anything to do with it. And that doesn't mean we want to get rid of all modern technologies that benefit man. We just wish to get rid of everything that pushes the planet to the brink of absolute destruction, and that makes every individual wake up every morning as a slave to Satan and a slave to usury. That's it. I'd love to take calls. I'd really love to hear from people, because this is about it. We can answer any question about whatever the most important issue that it is that's out there, and we never get any real important questions. We never really have any back and forth with anybody besides, government agents who are just playing games. 646-668-2151 is the number. I'd like to hear from somebody else right now. Cliff, what are your thoughts? Because basically all we're saying is this is all a sham. None of it makes any sense. All the actions of last week They benefited all the governments of the world. It consolidated power in the current Iranian regime. Not saying that that's good or bad, but if the goal of the United States Incorporated is to stop Iran from what they're doing, they did the exact opposite of what they should have done. So why is that? How is that possible that these individuals are so smart in some ways and then so stupid in other ways?
I don't know. It's a lot of mind fracturing, or like a lot of fractured minds. I mean, I'm just not sure how enough isn't enough for everyone. I mean, enough's been enough for me for I guess not even that long, but longer than everyone else, which is, I mean, seriously, with the story about the rape dogs, that was pretty much, I was just like, well, yeah, there's really nothing to save about the society,
right?
Except the infrastructure, it seems like, and the animals.
Right, yeah, the animals. Yeah, I really have the most empathy for the animals, and children besides that. But these children who are so damaged by their damaged parents and their damaged society, they're gonna wreak havoc and destruction, and when they grow up, and there's hardly any, I mean, when I hear about what people are doing in the world and see what they're doing, I shouldn't say, when I see what persons, individuals, and groups are doing, I just reject it. There's nothing else I can do. I can't. If I could stop it, I would. If I could personally stop it, I would. And you know, we're hoping to be stronger someday so that we can stop these things. However, I reject it in every sort of way. Look at the way the animals, and I don't even just want to talk about the animals. What about the trees? What about the bodies of water? What about the fishes in the sea? And everything is just destroyed. For what? It's not like anything good is coming out of society. There's no reason to keep this going. To keep this society the way it's structured right now. To agree, who wants to agree with this? That's what I really wish to know, and wish to inform the people about. If you're taking one side or the other, Iran versus the U.S., Russia versus the U.S., China versus the U.S., Republican versus Democrat, Coke versus Pepsi, Vikings versus Packers, Chelsea versus Tottenham, whatever you're picking, this bifurcated system, you are supporting it. I support none of it. I got no dog in any fight. For me, if this was real, these people, if there was a real freaking thing, and Iran was a legitimate adversary of the United States Incorporated, I mean, would Sheldon Adelson still be alive? I'm watching a documentary about how it seems Iran got framed by Israel and a Mossad agent who was a prosecutor in Argentina for an attack on a Jewish community center. And I mean, this stuff, it seems that no U.S. official would be safe if Iran was a real threat. Because I can tell you, Hey, don't bring us into this. That's my opinion. Hey, this is between y'all. They took out one of your generals. Hey, it's, if this is legitimate, which I don't believe it is. Hey, nobody in that government's safe. No millionaire or billionaire is safe. Nobody who supports this government. I don't give it any support. I do the opposite. I could not speak out against the United States Incorporated criminal body more vehemently. Tell me how to do it. I'll do it. If it's better. I could, everything to bring down this government, to bring down this treasonous criminal government that I could do while risking my life. I did it already. I mean, I'm not backing away from what I've already done. The Militia Handbook, whether it happens in my lifetime or it happens in the future, or if it never happens, that's the only way you're going to stop this Agenda 21. There's no other way. I wrote a book about it. There's, how to stop Agenda 21. I wrote a book. So I stand by it, and I say this is the only plan. And what I'm surprised at is that a million other people didn't write the exact same book. That's what I'm surprised at. And I think it's pretty pathetic that they didn't. Because these aren't my ideas. This is just pointing out obvious military strategy. So that's what we're talking about. There's only a few solutions. And it's protected under the law. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a dog in anybody's fight. All I can say is, if I wish the law to be enforced, and when the law is enforced, I would say we don't hope that this happens, but I mean, if Article 1, Section 3 were enforced, there would be at least probably 2 million executions in the United States that are lawful. So I'd love to get everybody's thoughts on that, because we say very provocative things. We know what we're talking about. We can back them up, and yet we don't really hear too much about it. Also, I'll repeat that. We hope the law is enforced, and we shall have mercy as we the people of God, the descendants of God's people, the 12 tribes of Israel, the natural rulers on planet Earth. I'm speaking on behalf of a small fraction of the population that can say this, that when the law is enforced, if it ever is, that there are about 2 million individuals just within the incorporated district of the United States that would have to be executed for treason. At least 2 million. So that pales in comparison to the number of individuals killed in these wars for Israel in the Middle East, in the wars for the Zionist state. Oh, and every Ashkenazi bloodline Jew would have to be expelled from the United States, and I would say at least 75% would be among those 2 million executed. I'm just saying what the law states and how it would have to go down if we did not show God's mercy and simply enforced our biblically based common law. So, Cliff, thoughts on that?
I mean, it's kind of obvious at this point that that's what has to go down if civil society is going to be restored. I mean, it's just, I guess I don't want to necessarily bring up the masses, but it's the majority of people just they're not thinking about anything long term. They're just kind of thinking about their fleeting pleasures and their miserable lives. So I mean, I don't really know what else to say other than that it's a disappointment, but that just seems to be what the case is. That more people are concerned about enjoying themselves in this hellscape than ending the hellscape.
Yeah, I mean that's true, and I believe that's a good point because I don't care what these individuals think or say. I only get angry at them for distracting me with their pointless and vapid words and thoughts. So, yeah, we're not talking about overthrowing the government. We're talking about abolishing the government and lawfully restoring the Constitution. And I can tell you why that is because because every entity that is trotted out to oppose the government is actually, in fact, controlled by the government themselves. So, yeah, it's just mass confusion, mass Satanism, mass deception, mass not knowing which end is up and which way to go down. So, again, we're not worried about organizing. We don't need to organize. You just organize yourself to say, like, nope, I don't have anything to do with this. Oh, this guy says this guy says that. What are the only... It's not about organizing. It's about it's about the law of the jungle. I mean, you don't need to organize in the, operating under the law of the jungle. I mean, there's different rules of engagement. I mean, are you gonna act the same way like at a fraternity party that you act in an old folks home? There's rules of engagement for both. Are you gonna like go to a Quaker meeting and behave like you do at an NFL football game? Cliff, am I making sense here?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing with how most persons act is people don't comprehend the actual rules of engagement. They think the rules of engagement or whatever however society tells you to behave, which is true in certain regards, but you gotta realize that all this stuff is criminal and none of it's legitimate. And as long as you're within the natural law, that you can tell all this other stuff to be gone.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's not like I make my best effort to be miserable. I mean, I do my best to do the opposite of that. I enjoy many things in life. The thing I enjoy possibly the most is nature, which is why I'm so angry right now at all. And I'll tell you who's responsible. Anyone who benefits in any way from this usury-based system. They need to be eliminated by any and all means. I don't know how many different ways I have to say that. So anybody protecting the individuals in charge, they need to be eliminated. The persons making these decisions to burn everything down. We got to talk about this though, Cliff. We got to talk about geoengineering, cloud seeding, and the major catastrophes that are going on inside Australia and other places around the world, California, etc., etc. Why are they not why are they not cloud seeding with this rain in Australia? Why are they not creating rainstorms? I know they're doing it in Richmond. I can see every time it rains, they're cloud seeding into it. Especially when it rains like it did, a week ago, where it rains like every day for like 7 days. And this summer we had a drought. The year before it was the rainiest year of all time here in Richmond. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm never sure if the geoengineering that's going on in California, if that's for the fires or if that's for the rain.
Right, but what I'm saying is, it was announced, and we talked about this last week on the show, that Indonesia was using geoengineering to make efforts to stop the rain that was causing massive flooding. So why in Australia are we not hearing about the 75, 80-year-old, and it might even go back further than that, technology that is very simple, that is done in every nation in this world now, of cloud seeding in order to make rain from the to tamping down the massive and out of control wildfires in Australia. Now maybe it has to do with the accelerant nature of the heavy metals that have to be used in cloud seeding, because that's aluminum. I believe a lot of it's silver. I don't really know whether that's going to have an adverse reaction. Yeah, well, I mean, why isn't anybody asking about, like, cloud seeding? Why isn't that the number one topic of conversation? Why isn't that a topic of conversation when it comes to how to fight these fires that are breaking out, that they're blaming on random individuals? They said, 24 individuals were arrested for starting fires in Australia? Give me a break.
Yeah.
Why didn't these 24 individuals or individuals like them out of the millions and millions of people in the population of Australia, why didn't they do that last year? Why didn't 24 people do that the year before? Why this year? Why is it the perfect storm? Hey, yeah, they set fires, and yeah, it's all dry. No rain. Drought. How do you have any droughts if you can cloud seed? Explain it to me. If it's something simple that I should get, I mean, we got we'll have had, by the time this show ends, we will have had who knows how many, because they're really affecting our view count, but many people watching this show, watching this program. Somebody tell me why there is droughts anywhere anymore, and why are there floods anymore? If there's so much control of the weather, I know the answer is because they're using these as weapons for destruction rather than weapons for averting destruction. So these technologies, when you get all excited about the technology, it's like, isn't this going to be great for humanity? Everything is double-edged like a sword, and if they tell you they're using it for good, they're really using it for bad. When they create Lyme disease in a lab, it's not to treat Lyme disease, to experiment, to find new medications, to do anything like that. It's about how to exacerbate Lyme disease. When there is a vaccine to prevent something, it's not a vaccine to prevent something, it's a vaccine to spread it. So those are the rules of engagement. When they tell you, this is for your own good. It means this is for your own bad. And if anybody has any sort of argument against that, I would love to hear it. I would love to hear how any of what's the changes in the world over the past 100 years have done any good for anybody. Maybe there are some levels of, I don't know. I mean, I really am trying to figure it out because, I look through my ancestors and my, genealogical chart. I mean, there are people going back like 300, 400 years that lived to be 85 years old. These people, they had their own land, their own farms. They had, they lived in church communities around like-minded people. Going back to my parents and grandparents, some of them passed away, much earlier than their ancestors hundreds of years before. So what's better? What's worse? I mean, all these governing institutions, man, I'm not interested in any shift in human consciousness. I mean, that stuff is just, excuse me, I don't mean any offense, but that's just a bunch of, nonsense, New Age nonsense. I don't buy that. How can we all figure it out and nobody else can? They know. I'm telling you, I talk to these people. They'll argue every step of the way, and then they'll go, yeah, Chris, you're 100% right. But there's nothing we can do about it. Okay, well, you get that. You get the most important thing. Oh, but it's the Democrats. It's not their fault. It's the Republicans' fault. We can figure it out. The masses have always been stupid. They're getting more stupid. That's true. That is true. But they've always been not very bright. And I've always been not very bright. But I'm not that dumb. So I wish to, do my best to reject the ego, but I have a difficult time when I put out all this information and it's important, and you can go 5 years back, 10 years back, in some cases 15 years back, and you can check. There's a record of what I've said and what I've done, and it adds up. And so I start, how I tamp down any sort of ego is not that I'm so great for figuring this out. It's that everybody else has to be really freaking beyond idiocracy stupid not to. Cliff, David, any thoughts?
The mind control is pretty mind-boggling. It's, again, as far as people that this society considers intelligence, they use what they call skepticism, which is really just denial of the obvious, and they use that to protect their egos because the truth is not psychologically comfortable, and it's pretty sad.
Yeah, it couldn't be any more sad. It is infuriating. It is absolutely infuriating. And I'll tell you, the problem with all of this stuff, it's always a spiritual problem. And I've got my own spiritual issues, but one will never conquer them without addressing them. And so these are spiritual issues, and that's what we have, and that's what leads me to say, throw up my hands and say, hey, I'm not going to stop what I'm doing, but all all I can do at this point is say, hey, I got nothing to do with these guys. It's like any other thing. Society does crazy, insane things. Animal torture, genocide, poisoning the earth, mocking God. But I just say, well, hey, I would love to stop them. I would love to stop that from happening. I would appreciate that if that were not the case. But all I can do is just say, not me. Non-assumpsit. Non-assumpsit. I'm not a party to these contracts. I don't agree to it. I don't give my consent in any way. And actually, I know what the law says. So, again, we're talking. I see somebody, not to pick on one particular individual out of the comment section, but I'll start taking them on because I just don't see the legitimacy in any of it. Didn't I just state that we advocate for the law to be enforced, and if the law was enforced, there would be about 2 million Americans that would have to be executed for treason because at least at least 2 million people in this country alone, maybe close to 1% of the population, is guilty of the most severe and transparent and verifiable treason that it would be impossible not to convict them, because every single thing that they do and every single thing that they get paid for, and it's paid money to carry out treason against the American people and carry out an affront against God and do nothing but serve the adversary of the creator of all things. So we're talking about, if the law were to be enforced, the execution of millions. Now, we at least would probably have to execute a large number of individuals. 3 is a that's a, you're having a laugh if you're asking me a question like that after we just said that millions of Americans are guilty of treason, and we're not just talking about voters. We're talking about millions of Americans have top secret clearance, have access to these underground bases, are privy to all the secrets in regard to continuity of operations and all the protocols depending on all the different scenarios that they have thought up to create. And when I say they have thought up to create, I'm talking about the false flag scenarios to kick off the end game for continuity of operations and continuity of government. Yeah. I'm not going to waste any more breath. But you're funny. You're a funny guy. Whoever you are. So we'll talk about that, the anonymity of individuals, and how it's really silly. But hardly anybody can be identified as a real individual. I would say, I don't know, even if you're using your real name. I mean, it's really funny. I don't want to get sidetracked into that. Cliff, what specifically do you want to discuss? Do you want to get into the aspects of this, of the attacks with Iran? Do you want to go more towards the slash and burn destruction in Australia? David, if you have any thoughts on where you want to go with that. David was mentioning the Orange Revolution. which was one of these Optor, OPTOR, and Canvas, CIA, Color Revolutions in the Ukraine. And I believe all these guys are in on it. We can go back over the fact that it was a Ukrainian Airlines plane. It was a Boeing plane, which also had a little bit to do with a little extra drop in the Boeing stock right after it was announced by the Iranian government that this was a mechanical issue, and Boeing's been having a lot of problems with its 737. And the stock's gone down. They fired their CEO, hired a new one that doesn't seem to. But then there's another, bam, shock downwards when it was announced that there was mechanical problems with the Boeing Ukrainian airliner, and it was shot down by Russian surface-to-air missiles. Not very long after, off the coast of the disputed territory of Crimea, Vladimir Putin shot off more threatening U.S. American threatening hypersonic nuclear weapons. We also don't wish to forget all of the tectonic attacks that took place off of Puerto Rico and what they could possibly be. They don't have to be HARP. I mean, they could do some undersea nuclear testing and create these earthquakes. They can do underground explosions and create these earthquakes. Fracking causes earthquakes, but there also is tectonic warfare that's been that the United States Pentagon has been admitting to carrying out with the target of Iranian nuclear facilities. And we know that the night of the alleged Iranian Revolutionary Guard response, where they first shot missiles into the Al-Assad air base in Iraq, and then other sites in Iraq that are housing U.S. military. That didn't kill anyone. Not a general. Not a private. Not even any Iraqis, allegedly. And that same night, there's a downed Ukrainian airliner. The story goes that it is a Russian weapon that brings the airliner down. And the same night, there is a earthquake near an Iranian nuclear plant, and that they have in the past stated that HARP is being used to target these underground facilities. So okay, so let's see.
I mean, yeah, that's a lot. I mean, my question is who's doing what. So Iran takes credit for the military strike, so I guess we can just take that at face value. Russian missiles take down a Ukrainian airliner. I mean, how many times have we heard the stories of Russia shooting down some sort of airliner? I feel like this is kind of a pretty repetitive narrative. And then the earthquake the same day, what is going on? What isn't set up? Was this is the obvious tectonic attack supposed to be the response to the response of the assassination? And is the downed airliner supposed to be a response to the assassination, or is that a response to the Iraqi strike, or the strike on the U.S. base?
Now you're going down the right path, Cliff.
That strike if no one died.
Yeah. Now you're going down the right path. Because all this stuff, they have the capability to do all this stuff. So if they have the capability to do all this stuff, why would they make such a mistake? Like, they said that there were 27 other planes that took off out of the Tehran airport in the time period between the downing of the airliner and the shooting down of the planes. So now number one question is, unless it's not a big deal at all, why would any flights be coming out of Tehran? They, within that hour, within the 2 hours, all night, all morning, when they use the weather warfare here in the United States, that, the entire East Coast planes might be shut down. That there might be 50 airports closed down on one day, and they're not running any planes. They're not going to take any chances. So why did they take the chance with this? And how coincidental is this that most folks, go by the surface level wag the dog scenario theories that, hey, Trump's being impeached, just like Clinton bombed Yugoslavia, whatever, the former Yugoslavia, during his impeachment. Now Trump's, bombing and taking out members of the Iranian media, bombing, I guess, hitting with a weaponized drone Iranian targets. So it's like, folks already think the wag the dog scenario, and why is it that Trump's being impeached? Well, they say it's because of his support of Russia against Ukraine, and that, but he supports Russia, and Iran and Russia are like buddy-buddy. However, the Iranians are going to shoot down a Ukrainian airliner with Russian missiles, and what? We're not supposed to. Oh, it's just a coincidence that Russia, missiles, Ukraine, Trump, and Iran are all involved, and that's what this impeachment's all about. It's just a coincidence. Oh, it's just a coincidence that there was a bunch of earthquakes in Puerto Rico, and now they're showing Donald Trump, basketball shooting the paper towels to a crowd. I mean, come on. What? Okay. Like, we get the point. We get it. Are you just gonna say, like, hey, these things are just randomly coincidental? Don't worry about it. Earthquake in Iran, shooting down a jetliner headed for Ukraine with Russian missiles. Nah, nothing to see here. Just everyday stuff. Just a mistake. Hey, who's Nick Bushnell? I mean, also, there's huge underground tunnels. I worked at an oil field and okay. So, like, anyway, we're just going to ignore most of what's going on. David, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, what are your thoughts? Yeah, go ahead.
For me, I'm just absolutely, almost speechless. Even more so than usual, because there really is nothing left to say. I mean, yeah, we'll keep saying it, but again, in order to live life, period, don't individuals want to know how the world really works compared to what we allege, or what the alleged way it works? Okay, like for instance, wars. You know, individuals think wars happen because one leader of a so-called nation makes that decision, and then everybody follows behind him. You know, leaving out the whole logistical aspect of it. You know, I used to wonder these things. You know, when I was younger, about how everything really seems to fall in sync without no explanation. You know, as you know, kids who think, who I'd say that think a little bit more than other individuals, they suspect that things aren't right, because I sure did. And I used to wonder, like, okay, let's see if I can think of an individual. Like, let's say there's an individual that we're told about that changed history. I used to wonder, how did he get so many people to follow behind him, and how did his money just come out of nowhere? You know, nobody ever asked those questions. You know, again, how did he all of a sudden obtain money? And now, like, for instance,
well, David, real quick. Sorry to cut you off, but okay, so we talk about logistics. When basically the tit for tat with this thing started allegedly with an Iranian-backed militia killing what they call an American contractor, which seemed to be an Iraqi, that somehow during the conflict between the United States Incorporated and the quote-unquote coalition forces, when they were doing their genocide on the Iraqi people, that one of these Iraqis basically got American citizenship. Not, and the guy's remains unnamed, and who knows if any of this stuff is real. So then the next step is assassinating a general, which we pointed out is pretty much, you don't really even do that in the middle of a war. And if it's ordered from, the quote-unquote president of the United States, that it's an escalation. And what we know is that foreign governments were informed about this. What we're told in the media is that what we know for a fact is that this was ordered by foreign governments, that this was a order carried out by folks like Sheldon Adelson, Jared Kushner, Bibi Milikowski, a.k.a. Benjamin Netanyahu, John Bolton, for the benefit of the Ashkenazi population and their control over the world governments. At the very top, that's what it always comes down to. I don't like to call them this, but to answer every question when you start going like, well, how does this happen? Why did that do this? This is horrific. Why did that happen? It's the Jews. Let me repeat they're not the real Jews. They're the synagogue of Satan. But it's if you don't know what to properly call them out there, it's the Jews. What's the problem? It's the Jews. Now, would planet Earth have a separate, group of problems without the Jews? Maybe. But they're the biggest problem of humans. Everybody else seems to be able to take care of themselves. David, call back when you get a chance. David dropped. I think he's having some phone issues. But anyways, I don't know what happened there.
You kind of want to get into how the civil unrest is really getting worse in America, and how people seem to be ignoring it. I don't know. I saw a sign posted around the Castro area of San Francisco talking about people getting assaulted and like robbed and that sort of stuff, and it's like, well, that's your income inequality. Not that I'm like advocating for that, but it's like this is obviously the natural outcome of this type of satanic society. And you got this thing going down in Virginia. It's just everything seems to be like coming to a boiling point.
Well, yeah, they banned guns from certain parts of the Virginia State Capitol today. Now that's inside the building, the grounds. I never take a gun on the inside of the building, and I've worked there. I do my work there. I worked as an extra in a movie at the Virginia State Capitol. I have definitely done a lot of demonstrations on the outside of the Capitol, and I've worked on the inside in television studios that are located in the Virginia State Capitol in the General Assembly building at the corner of it's right on Broad Street, right across from City Hall. So this is getting out of hand, and I want to say, just to follow up on what we were talking about earlier, and the quote-unquote Jewish issue, but I can tell you again, these aren't Jews. These are imposter Jews. They're the synagogue of Satan. And we have the first Jewish and first woman Speaker of the House of Delegates in Virginia, and she is a nightmare. She is an absolute nightmare. Yeah. I don't like. A lot of folks are commenting, and I don't like to get distracted, but I don't even really care at all what the folks watching this broadcast think. So someone who disagrees with me vehemently, I really don't care. I really don't care at all. I'm just telling you what's going on. We're doing our due diligence. Have we got David back yet? I'm not on this. Nope. All right. Let's see. All right. So here we go. This is it. Eileen. Let's see. Jewish. Imposter Jew of the Synagogue of Satan, Eileen Filler Korn. She's one of the biggest gun grabbers that you will see. Delegate Eileen Filler Korn is Virginia's first Jewish Speaker of the House. Meet Eileen Filler Korn, Virginia's first Jewish Speaker. Let's see what else we got with her. Let's see. So it's all the Jews with the gun grab, like with everything else. It's Bloomberg, it's Soros, it's Eileen Filler Korn, and it's all these disgusting, filthy enemies of God, and we can't do anything else but just repudiate and reject them and say, when the law, God willing, if the law is enforced, that they will be punished to the fullest extent of the law for their treason. So, yep, there we have it. I mean, that's it. That's it in a nutshell. The Jewish, what is it? World government domination, world destruction plan it's underway, and there are plenty of other quote unquote non-Jews that are involved. So it's not just them. They have infected with their mind virus all peoples, and it's so pervasive. It is absolutely so pervasive. Jews at a gun grab event. I don't see what that is. So there we have it. We got about a half hour to go. I'd love to get some calls from folks if they'd like to call in. The number is 646-668-2151. I'd love to hear from anyone really, but a lot of folks, you know, if you're not going to identify yourself and you're not going to call in, like nothing absolutely is ever going to change, because I got to describe to you how they basically how anything works. And I can tell you that things are never going to change and things can never get organized for one reason and one reason only, and that is because individuals who allege to have certain beliefs, they won't even stand behind their beliefs by even identifying who they are. So that's number one. That's the number one thing that I learned when I first started getting into activism. You have to state your opinion, and you have to be open about it. I'm Chris Dorsey, and I believe in the common law. I believe in God, and I believe in ending the satanic torture of all living things on planet Earth. So therefore, all governments must be neutralized. All incorporated governments must be neutralized, and our common law, biblical-based constitution restored. We got a caller from 907. So we're going to bring this caller on. All right, caller, 907. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Nick Bushnell, actually, from your chat.
Oh, okay, good. Happy to hear from you. Happy to hear from you, Nick. Yeah, what are your thoughts? What would you like to communicate to the listeners of this show?
Well, just the whole Zionist issue, the Jew issue. It's like no Zionist that lives in Israel is technically a Jew, but that doesn't change the fact that even Orthodox Jews and ultra-Orthodox, they have some pretty fucked up fundamental belief systems about what they are and aren't allowed to get away with, and their views on non-Jewish people.
Yeah, I definitely agree, but hey, we're operating under a parliamentary procedure, so language is key, and also we don't want to get any excuse for Facebook and YouTube, etc. But I do agree with you on that. I believe this goes back to the Kievan Rus wars with the Khazarians. I believe that there is something genetically. I mean, I believe that the fake Jews themselves, the Ashkenazi themselves, they make a joke. They're mocking us, knowing that they're full of mind diseases. That all these that not only that is no wonder that they are the godfathers of quote unquote modern psychoanalysis, because they had to make up names for all of their mind diseases that they have unleashed on the planet. That all of their spiritual sickness has to be justified and have a name. They're the worst. You know, people.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that actually.
People are natural sinners, but the genetic the genetic Ashkenazi, which we can genetically identify, they're the worst of them. Go ahead. Sorry, Nick.
Oh, no, you're good. One thing that I kind of found out I was researching it separately on my own and kind of led back to this, but transgenderism and the entire transgender movement was created in the early 1920s in Germany by a private gender studies institute that was created and run by Jewish people. And it's that same organization that influenced all of the gender studies institutions in America also. So the entire transgender issue is created by the Jews.
I would take some issue with that. I definitely know that you're correct about your statements in 1920s in Germany, but I would say that there's a long esoteric tradition. I mean, just look at certain elements of royalty and certain elements of ecclesiastical entities combined. I mean, it's not like, these people are overtly dressing like women, but robes, dresses, etc. There is a definite crossover, and it has esoteric origins. But yes, the modern transgender movement is clearly controlled and disseminated, created, invented by the quote-unquote synagogue of Satan.
I want to get into some Heritage Foundation videos that YouTube removed where they were essentially the right wing or the not leftist opinions on the modern transgender movement. And this one woman discussing how transgender women, these men who want to identify and present themselves as females, can be more or less split up into two categories. Homosexual men who wish to go the extra mile, I guess you could say, and autogynephilic men, essentially men who fetishize themselves dressing up as women. They get off on the idea of thinking they're women, and that just straight up sounds like a prime example of like Khazarian mind disease and these weird perversions, distortions, aberrations of thought forms.
I agree with you there, and what I feel is it's the sexual degeneracy of society. If you can sexually degenerate people, you are essentially destroying the family. And when you destroy the family, you destroy the state, because the family is the microcosm of the state. The state is essentially a family of families. So if you're able to attack the family at its backbone like that, then it's the simplest way to overthrow a nation.
Yeah, I think that's well put. I mean, that gives detail, and maybe to simplify it a little more, when we are, as a society, bullied into accepting men dressed as women is normal, or that men having sex with men is normal, then we will accept anything, and all bets are off. It's done. We're finished. The United Methodist Church has split now. So they say there's all these different denominations. There's only one Christian church, and it's not in Rome. It's in every Christian's heart, and it's in every Christian's mind, and it's in every Christian's soul. And that means that we fear God only, and that that all this stuff is it's not that we want to make heroes or villains out of these individuals who are exhibiting these spiritual sicknesses, that we feel sorrow for them, but we certainly are not going to pretend that it's good, that we should watch their TV shows or mimic their behavior. This is a sickness. This is showing you, hey, society's finished. It's done. It's done. When we have a entity called the First Lady, which is actually a man who's, what I'm talking about, Michelle Obama, then all the other mockery can be allowed to take place and nobody will even notice. And that is a deadly thing. And so when they start doing this, when they start telling you, like, hey, Hollywood, you're a bunch of pedophiles and you're friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and, like, you can't tell anybody anything, and it gets a laugh. It's not like that behavior is going to be targeted and ostracized. It only means it's going to be protected and it's going to increase in society. It's not like our knowledge of these things is ever stopping it. It's just mainstreaming it. That's it. It's the downfall of society.
I see what you're saying there, and
Go ahead, Nick.
yeah, I get what you're saying there, and that's kind of like with this whole QAnon movement and stuff like that that's been going on these like message boards and stuff like that. It's like I want to believe that all that's real, but at the same time, how can I believe that's real when Trump is just he's shilling to Israel like every other president has shilled to Israel?
Well, yeah, nobody in their right mind believes anything that Q says. Again, we've already established you can't believe anything unless somebody stands behind it and says, this is me, this is what I believe. Because if they believe these things, and they truly believe it, like when you believe something, you're going to say it. I mean, I got woke up like a few days ago, and it's like knocking on the door. Nobody knocks on my door except for people with extreme beliefs. And they'll tell you about it. If you believe in something, they'll tell you about it. The Jehovah's Witnesses, they'll knock on your door. And they'll tell you what they believe. And they'll tell you their name. And they'll meet you face to face. So unless somebody is doing that, they don't really believe in anything. They're just putting out information to mislead. And obviously, I mean, I'm not saying you can't get good information from these sources, but you won't get complete information from these sources. I always pay attention to whatever the enemy is saying. It's not that I believe all of it. I believe what I can verify. I mean, but yeah, QAnon. I mean, if somebody's believing that, they're believing that, they might as well believe in Santa Claus. Actually, that's stupider than believing in Santa Claus.
I feel you.
Yeah, because, and I'll explain why it's stupider. There's some element of Santa Claus being real. The individuals act on behalf of a fake entity called Santa Claus, and something really happens. Nothing really happens on this QAnon stuff, except for an echo chamber that is doing the opposite of what the people hearing this would want to hear. Let me rephrase that. So there might be some true conspiracies that are being laid out for the consumers of the QAnon or any other false conspiracy stuff that but what it does is it does the opposite of, like, if these people want these conspiracies to stop, if they want to destroy the deep state, they're getting the exact wrong instructions. Destroy the deep state. Support Trump. Trump is the worst. He's the worst. And you know what's going to be worse than Trump? The next regime administration. And what's going to be worse than them? The next one after that, unless it all gets taken down. I mean, Clifford points this out all the time now. In that before Donald Trump ran for president, he was a lifelong Democrat. Now he blames everything on Democrats. Everything that he's doing now, he blamed on Barack Obama. Barack Obama is going to bomb Iran when he gets in political trouble to get reelected. Then he does it. So who would believe someone, or even wish to stand behind someone who's such an obvious, hypocrite? Who would do that? Only those acting in complete dishonor. Whether they're just too stupid to, connect the dot. And I'm saying the word dot singular on purpose because it's just one big freaking dot. Anybody that has any position of authority, anybody who's making more than $70,000 a year at a job is serving Satan and doing horrible stuff. And it's not worth it. Your lives are worth less than the billion animals that are already dead in Australia. They're more innocent. God gave you dominion. And what have you done? You've shirked your responsibility. You haven't done anything. Nothing's going to stop this thing until it's brought to its knees. The first step is to remove consent in every sort of way. I mean, because it doesn't really matter what I say except for, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I've already said it all. All Democrats, Republicans, all corporate officials, all lawyers, all judges, all millionaires and billionaires, all cops, all guilty of treason. What else is there to say? Well, what do you have? Everything would be gone to that. Yes, go back to our God-given system, our tribal system, which is the basis of the United States of America. We came from England. That's where our government came from. And before, but we as those who carry these royal bloodlines, we're related to all the European rulers. Not just Western Europe, all of Europe, all of it. So, what did our ancestors do? For example, let's take Christmas. Christmas is a big usury fest where poor people give all their money to all the rich in corporations. And then they go in debt for the rest of the year. And then they get involved in usury and interest rate manipulation and constant debt where they constantly are forced to work in order to keep a roof over their head for the corporations that are destroying God's planet. So everything goes against God's plan. So, and we have one day. That's for one day, Christmas. So let's look at what our ancestors did. They had 12 days of Christmas. They had 12 days off of work, where we only have one day off of work. I mean, I don't have any days off of work. I'm always working. I'm always breathing. My heart's always working. My brain's always working. But digressing back to the specific subject at hand, 12 days, and it wasn't that these yeomen and farmers and peasants were not working. So hey, they it's like, hey, no money. They didn't have money like we have today. So what they had was the rich people gave feasts for all the poor people. So it's the complete switch around. So we have a system where the masses have very little control over what the government does in any sort of way. And we used to have a system where we have things called the Peasants' Rebellion, where a bunch of peasants got together and started chopping the heads off of corrupt government officials. Now, we have this system where it's the worst thing possible to even place blame on the individuals who steal all your money poison your environment, poison your food, and bugger your children. Come on now. All right. Anybody, you know.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from.
Right, but, you know, if there's any, like, expansion on that, you know, I referenced that earlier because they act as if modern technology is great. We have the best modern technology. Each day it keeps getting better. Why is the life expectancy for white people in the United States of America going down now? If that's the case, isn't that the biggest?
There is an ongoing war on whites taking place where everything gets blamed on white nationalists.
That's true. I'm specifically talking about life expectancy, though, and my point is all these so-called medicines, all these cures for diseases created in a lab in most cases and injected into our own bodies, not by choice, but by force, are not to make us live longer. They're to shorten our lives, and if the intent is to make us live longer, then they have done the exact opposite of what their intent was, which means they're incompetent or they're purposely killing us. They're incompetently killing us or they're purposely killing us. So
that reminds me of something I've thought of before, where if you kind of look at America and like the people that actually decide to take a step back and get healthy and take charge of their life, well, what do? Well, they stop eating all of our mass-grown foods. You know, they usually go vegetarian or vegan. They move out of big cities. They move in. You know, they start homesteading. They start growing their own food. They start taking care of themselves.
Right, but hey, let me stop you there, Nick, because I don't want to even go down this path, because I can tell you what you need to do in order to live life in a healthy manner. And I advocate vegetarianism, I advocate veganism, I advocate getting out of the city, but I don't have any ability to do that for myself. And what I know is that the folks who are doing that have already, that they are definitely, they know definitely how to avoid the traps, because that's the trap that they wish to put everybody else in. Because the only way you can live a healthy lifestyle in this hellscape is to have a lot of money. Go ahead, Nick, because I wish to hear the response to that.
Well, can you repeat that last part?
Basically, in order to you know, eat a healthy lifestyle, you know, have healthy eating habits, in order to grow your own food, in order to move out of the city, meaning buy property that's not even yours, you still have to pay, you know, property tax, etc. In order to do that, one has to be so criminal that they don't even deserve those things. That's basically what I'm saying. And that...
Yeah, I get what you're saying there. It's almost like you have to be a part of the system even to get out of the system at
right.
this point.
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, because everybody else is pretty much stuck. You're stuck in a cycle of paying for everything. Yeah, I mean... Like, for example, here's how I know the system has failed. I bought a car 2 years ago, and in order to not even just maintain it, in order to just keep it from getting stolen away from me by the government, I have to pay every year 3 times the amount of money in insurance, personal property tax, and licensing fees than I paid for the entire car that they say that I own. So, and as soon as I get threats that this vehicle is going to get towed away, I have to pay for insurance. Then I have to pay for a magical sticker that keeps the car from not getting towed away. Nothing naturally is manipulating this car. The car runs. It doesn't need the sticker to run. I don't need this, this card with my picture on it to drive. I've known how to drive since I was 15 years old, and I've done it since I was 15 years old. So 30 years of my life, I have successfully driven a vehicle. And I know that I don't have to waive the quote-unquote state driver's license in front of the car for it to start and for me to matriculate down the road. That all this stuff is fictionalized. It's corporatized and it's fictionalized. And for somebody to be able to go out and buy land and go and buy nothing but healthy food, I can tell you, I know what it would cost me to eat as healthy as I could in the situation that I have, and it would cost me about what I pay a month, actually more than I pay in a month to keep a roof over my head. In other words, it would probably cost about $500 a week to get the proper amount of healthy nutrition. Nobody's got that except for really rich people. And go down to your local natural food market and see the amount of groceries that folks get. I mean, I see some folks, buying their weekly groceries, and their grocery bill, if they're shopping at a certain local food market, will be $600. It's absolutely insane.
I've actually worked at a produce department for a year. I was ordering all the produce for the store that I worked at. Go to your local store and look at how much produce they throw away.
Well, we cover this a lot. Half of it. Because we do cover that a lot. So basically, if they didn't throw it away, the food would cost half as much. So they throw away at least half of the food. And we're not talking about spoiled food. We're talking about, edible produce, edible food is thrown away. Now, when you add spoiled food into that, we're talking about 75% of the food that comes in and out of the grocery store ends up in a dumpster. And there's a local food store called Elwood Thompson's. That's here in Richmond. That's the one I was talking about, where I used to get inside information from employees there. And I remember hearing that because they were throwing away so much good food, that folks were waiting outside. They weren't even having to dumpster dive. They were just getting the food handed to them, or having it put directly into the dumpster and then grabbing it right out as it's going in. And so what this store decided to do... But listen, let me finish. Let me finish, though, Nick, because what this store did, and I will name it, and I confronted the owner of the business about this and many more issues. I confront people. That's what I do. I don't do it that much anymore, and I usually do it with a gun, and I always do it legally. But what this store decided to do was to pour bleach on all the food that they put in the dumpster. Go ahead, Nick. That's the apex of the story.
Yeah, no, that's actually completely ridiculous that they would do that. At the store that I worked at, it's kind of like
they stated it was mandated by the law.
But well, we have a lot of people around my area that they have pigs and they have chickens and they have animals that they raise, and I would always give the throwaway produce to those people. Like, they would always show up at the back of the store, and I'd always throw it back there for them to come pick up. But yeah, hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of produce every week, and that's just that, a smaller size store all the way up here in Alaska. I can only imagine what it's like in crazy places like LA or San Francisco, thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
Well, this I have experience seeing this at a store that I was mentioning where rich people shop. It's all about money. All this stuff, it boils down to money. Everything about the way every individual lives, the more money you have, the better off you can protect yourself. The better one can protect themselves. And conversely, the less money you have, the more one is at risk. And it's just as simple as that. And when we start talking about the price of everything and how it's used to extort people, hey, it's like, hey, you need this drug to live. Okay, let me have it. Okay, that'll be $1,000 a pill, please. I don't have $1,000 a pill for each pill. Well, you better get it. You better get it or you're going to die. It's like, well, you keep eating this food, you're going to poison yourself. Well, I can't afford any other food. I got to fill my belly. Too bad. Sorry.
Yeah, no, completely. That's it's the war on the middle class. They give poor people benefits and they raise the cost of everything so the middle class can't support itself. There's only going to be super wealthy people and super poor people.
That's already the case. I mean, I'm poor. I mean, but I live in a house that somebody might consider middle class. But I'm poor because I spend all my money to keep everything on. I mean, like, look, I'm a space eater because, I go, people are like, hey, you got heat in your house, don't you? I'm like, well, yeah, it's all right. And they go, whoa, you got to have heat. I'm like, well, it's a heat pump. And then they go, oh, yeah, heat pumps don't work. Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it's costly. It costs a lot of money to keep it, 55 degrees in your house, but yeah, they don't work. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. That's explained. I mean, just these bizarre mindsets that everyone has. Hey, we're coming down to the we're on the other side of the 10 o'clock Eastern hour. So thanks to Nick, thanks to David, thanks to Cliff. Cliff, any final thoughts that you have, and then we'll get to Nick. Final thoughts, and then I'll let loose with my final thoughts.
I mean, as always, society is a complete failure. The society needs to be raised to the ground, and it's happening.
Yeah, it is. It is happening. Right. Yeah, J.D. Davis is saying like heat pumps, but they're no good below freezing. Exactly. That's right. Exactly. So yeah, only good for places that don't get below freezing, which is not this. Even we've had a mild winter and we've had, I don't know, a couple dozen days below freezing. Maybe more like a dozen. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's being raised to the ground. We're just all kind of spectating, some more than others. But the only place I can put my faith is in God. There's no other choice, and I mean there's comfort in that. It doesn't mean we're gonna stop doing what we're doing, but I rejected consent many years ago. Many years ago, I rejected all consent given to this society, and it's got to be abolished. The government's already abolished, but this society has to be abolished. We have to have a completely different way of living moving forward than what we have now, or else there is absolutely no hope. Yeah, Nick, final thoughts.
I've always kind of thought that there's really only two ways to sustain the planet, and that's either there needs to be a single entity that has full control over all resources and all resource distribution and management, or everybody needs to break off into small little secular groups, and they need a homestead, and everyone needs to be growing food and communicating with each other. And honestly, it really doesn't look like either of those things are going to be happening anytime soon.
Well, I disagree with you, because I think the problem is that the first thing already has happened. That the problem is that the resources are all owned by a single entity, and the problem is that single entity will always be evil and never be good. You can't get in control of all that power and not and have it turn out well for the people. And as far as like breaking up in little groups, that's what I advocate. And little groups, maybe not, but at least an agreement on certain levels that we have to get rid of all of the ways in which humanity can wipe out life on the planet. They need to be put in control of. I mean, I don't advocate for I advocate for my rights first, because I don't trust anybody else with their rights. And that doesn't mean I wish all people to have their natural rights, their God-given rights, but most folks can't be trusted with that. They can't. I don't think that everybody should have a gun. I really don't. I definitely don't think everyone should have a gun. But should there be a law that prohibits anyone from having a gun? No. Because nothing is going to stop somebody from getting it. When they get rid of all guns out of the hand, if they were to ever do that, which I don't think that they would, there would be equal amounts of murder, and they would just be more brutal. So something in humanity drives us to kill each other and to form factions and form groups, and we're given instructions. And I know what it's like to I know the concept of honor. I know the concept of truth-telling. Does that mean I'm always honorable and I'm always truth-telling? I mean, I make an effort to be, but I'm sure I sin and fall short, as everyone does. But these guys, they do the opposite. They don't even think about acting in an honorable manner, and they would never consider actually doing it. They lie and they deceive and they steal, and they do it for their out of their own hubris. And they have to be physically stopped. And that's the only way. The only way is to physically stop them. The only way is to do that through the use of the law. And the final word that I have to say is, we really have only a couple things to stand on, and that's the Word of God and the law of the land. And the law of the land, when and if it is enforced, will result in a completely new, honorable system and the execution of many, many government officials, because it's going to come to that. And I can tell you right now, it's either them or it's you. That's really the final word. It's them or it's you. However you got to do it. Oh, it can't be done. We can't do it. They're so powerful. We have nothing. Well, better get powerful. Better get something. Better do something, because it's either them or you. The plan is written out. It's written in stone in the Georgia Guidestones. It's written in ink in the plans for Agenda 21. It's written in ink in the plans for continuity of operations and continuity of government. And then they rub it right in your face by starting world wars and burning up entire continents and entire states here in America. So you better do something, or you're done. You're finished. And if you keep going with this status quo and you think, well, I'm just going to enjoy life, you're just doing nothing but serving Satan. And you're wasting your time and you're making a mockery out of God. So this is Chris Dorsey signing off. Thanks to Cliff. Thanks to David. Thanks to Nick. Peace and God bless.
All right,
Thanks.
God bless.
Yeah, thanks, y'all.